Okay, how do we find the radius of this circle if we know that our line is tangent to the circle and the hypotenuse is 20? How do we find the radius? Pythagorean theorem. What gets its own side in the Pythagorean theorem? The 20 or the 16? 20, because it's a hypotenuse. So 20 squared equals 16 squared plus the radius squared. Okay? What's 20 squared? 16 squared. So if we subtract 256 from each side, we get 144 equals r squared. If we take the square root, what is r? 12. There we are. Is AB tangent to the circle in this 5, 10, 12 triangle? How do we tell if it's tangent to the circle? Well, that is the definition, yeah, but it kind of looks like it intersects at one point, but that triangle has to be what? A right triangle. Is that a right triangle? How do we tell? Pythagorean theorem. Is c squared equal to a squared plus b squared? Is 12 squared equal to 5 squared plus 10 squared? Is 144 equal to 25 plus 100? So no, this is not tangent to the circle. Okay? No. How do you find the perimeter of this object? How do you find the perimeter of that quadrilateral? Okay. So if this is 7, this is 7. If this is 4, this is 4. If this is 10, this is 10. This is 3, this is 3. So this side is 11, this side is 13, this side is 10, this side is 14. 14 and 11 add up to 25. 13 and 10 add up to 23. 23 plus 25 is 48. You can do this a bunch of different ways, but that's the way to do it. All right. How big is angle AOB? How big is angle AOB? 40 degrees? And the answer is not so fast, my friend. It is 80 degrees. The central angle is equal to the arc. Okay, here's the arc. The central angle is equal to it. Well, what type of angles are these two angles? Vertical angles. So this is 80 as well. So AOB is 80. What is angle DAC? DAC over here, this angle. How big is angle DAC? That's 40. Okay, that's 40 degrees because it's an inscribed angle, and an inscribed angle is half the arc. The measure of an inscribed angle is half the arc. That was the first question on your quiz the other day. Okay, that some of you got wrong. All right. How long is x there? 24. Because if this is 12, this is 12, which makes this whole line 24. If it's 6 away from the center and this is 6 away from the center, they are the same length, so they are both 24. Okay? How do you figure out x? Yeah, Pythagorean theorem. So we draw x right there, because every radius of a circle is the same length. So no matter what part of the circle, where you're at in the circle, the radius will always be the same length. So if this whole line is 24, each half of it is 12. So x squared equals 5 squared plus 12 squared. X squared equals 25 plus 144. X squared equals 169. Take the square root. What is x? 13. That's the radius of the circle. How big is A? How big is A? Emily, what do you think? Maybe you should pay attention instead of doing whatever homework you're looking at. 82. Good job. Okay, we have one of these on the test. Okay, what would you find first? A, B, C, or D? Most of you would find A because that comes first in the alphabet, but I would find C. Because what do we know about opposites in these quadrilaterals that are inside a circle? They add up to 180. So C is 74. D is 94. All right. So since this is 86, if that's 86, what is this whole arc out here? 172. You multiply 86 by 2 to find the arc. This is 172 and this is 44. What's left for A? 128. Okay. Now, we know what C is, so then we can figure out B. C, we said, was 74. What's 74 times 2? 148. So if C is 148 and this is 128, what's left for B? 20. Okay? So, those are becoming easier, right? As we do more of them. Okay, you'll have one of those on your test, so make sure you know what you're doing. All right, what's A? 39. It's half of the arc. What's B? What's B? Well, how much of the circle is this? 180. It cuts off half of a circle, right? It cuts off 180. If it cuts off 180, it's half the 180, which makes it 90. C, and this isn't drawn to scale here. I should have the numbers switch around, but what's left for C? 102. All right, X and Y here. What would you find first, X or Y? I would actually find Y first, because how many degrees are in a circle? 360. What's left for Y? 114. So if Y is 114, what is this angle X down here? 57, half of the 114. The inscribed angle is half the arc. The arc is twice the angle. Okay? If you don't know that, then you're going to get a lot wrong on this test. Okay? Because there's a lot of problems dealing with it, just like this one is full of them. Okay? What is angle A? Angle A? What'd you say? Oh, I thought you said 52. I was going, what are you talking about, man? Yeah, it's 32. Because angle A is half the arc. Here's the angle A. It's half of this arc, 64. What is CE, this arc down here? 48. Because the angle's half the arc is then twice the angle. Okay? What's angle C right here? Why is it 32? It's half of the arc, which is 64. You take half the arc that it cuts off. It cuts off this arc. It's half of that. What's angle D? 40. Because it's half the arc of 80. What's ABE? What's ABE? There's more than one way to do this. Angle A, whoa. Angle ABE. From here to here. No. 90. No. It looks kind of 90-ish, but it's not 90. 64? I'll go with 64. It is 64. Okay, if this is 80, this angle's 40, right? And you add these two up to make 64. Or, we told you earlier, CE was 48. 80 plus 48 is 128. Half of 128 is 64. Either way. Okay, you'll have that on the test. Now you know. Okay, we'll play with it on the practice test so you know. How big is A? How big is A? 28, because it's half the arc of 56. What's left for angle B then? What's left for angle B? If A is 28, what's left for B? Couple different ways to do this one. If this is the diameter of the circle, what kind of angle should this be then? A right angle. So if we use 28 for A, what's left for B? 62. Another way to do it, if this is 56 and there's 180 degrees over here because it cuts off half a circle, then this winds up to be 124, right? And if you take half of 124, it's 62. A couple different ways to look at it. C, how big C? 52. Okay, we're finding X and Y here. X is the length of a segment, Y is an angle. How do we figure out X? And it's going to be a decimal answer. 14 times X equals 8 times 10. That was in our last lesson that we had on Tuesday. This times this equals this times this. Okay? So 14x equals 80. Divide by 14. X equals 5.7 about. Okay? Like I said, it'll be a decimal. How do we figure out y? And again, this is from our last lesson on Tuesday. Has something to do with that and that. The angle on the inside equals 1/2 of 104 plus 62. When the angle's on the inside, you add these two arcs. When the angle's on the outside, you subtract them, taking the bigger arc minus the little arc. So, angle y equals 1/2 of 166. Half of 166 equals 83. Angle's on the outside, so we subtract 1/2 of the big arc, 138, minus the little arc of 48. Half of 138 minus 48 is 1/2 of 90. Half of 90 is 45. Angles on the outside, what do we do? Subtract the big arc minus the little arc. But what's a big arc? What is the big arc here? 250, because there's 360 degrees in a circle. So if 110 is on this side, what's left is 250. So you take 1/2 of 250 minus 110, which is 1/2 of 140, which gives you 70. How do we do these? Outside times the whole thing equals the outside times the whole thing. So 24 times 34 equals 28x plus whatever 28 times 28 is. 784. So 24 times 34 is 800 and something, I think. 860? 816, thank you. So 816 equals 28x plus 784. If you subtract 784, you get 32 equals 28x divided by 28, and you get 1.1. Okay, which doesn't really look right here. You'll have better numbers when it comes to the test. Okay, so that's the basics. Okay, quite a few problems are the angle is half the arc. Okay, a couple of the angles is equal to the arc, so you got to know that. Use the Pythagorean theorem. I think this is one of your easier chapters of the book, so let's make sure we get a good test score in on this one. Yep. We'll run over it quick, maybe, if anybody has any questions on it, we'll run over any questions quick tomorrow morning, and then we can switch to test. Okay, there you go. No, that's fine. So this is a number, this is a number. It comes from looking at these and figuring out numbers. This will be 3 letters, and this will be 2 letters. Okay, the segment that's equal, you just read the directions, you can figure that out. Okay, if this is 15, this is 15, so this whole thing is, yeah, and so figure that out. And then to figure out how long this is, if this is 15 and 15, so then you have to use the Pythagorean theorem. Yeah, same thing for this one. Okay.